Hello everybody. In this video, I want to show you guys how you can use Excel to do the calculations for the measurement lab. First, I just want to mention a little bit about Excel. This is a spreadsheet program, so these little boxes that we call cells. You can click on any one of them, and you notice that they're laid out in a grid, so that's what names each cell. So this is cell B6 right here. You can input just words into it if you want. And when you do that, you notice that it gets like left justified. All the words are pushed over to the left. Or you can put in numbers. And you'll notice that when you do that, it gets right justified. It gets pushed over to the right. That lets you know that it recognizes this as a number and not just a word. The real power in it is that you can input formulas though. Okay, and to do that, you're always going to start off with an equal sign. That lets Excel knows that this is a formula and not a number or a word. And then you're going to basically tell it what to do. So I can tell it here that I want to take B1 and I want to add to it B2. And you'll see that it color codes it for you. So it makes this blue and it puts little blue blocks around it. You know that it recognizes that it's that. And then it's got this red here and it recognizes that that's that. And if I hit enter, I get the sum of these two instead of anything else. We even make it a little easier for you. If you go ahead and hit equals, you can actually just click on that box that you want and then put in whatever thing you want there. Click on the next one and then you go ahead and do that. Now, in addition to that, it also has a whole bunch of much more powerful functions that it can do. It can do averages and all these other things for you. And there's this little guy here, they kind of hide it from you a little bit, that helps you do that. So if you go into here, you're going to find this dialog box here where it has all these different functions that you can use. These are just my most recently used ones, but there's a ton of them in here. And each one, when you click on it, it gives you a little bit of sense of how you're going to use that. For instance, this one converts units from one unit to another. So you have to put in a number and then a comma and then the unit that it is, and then a comma, and then the unit you want it to be there. And it'll convert that number for you. And then a little description, converts a number from one measurement system to another. Some of these can be pretty cryptic and you're not really sure what exactly they do, but there's a lot of resources online to help. So, and the only other thing I wanted to mention is that if you highlight a section and you right click on it and you go to this guy right here, format cells, you can go over here to align. You can wrap the text. And I'll show you exactly what that does. So if I just put in a really long thing here, like chemistry is super awesome. It is my favorite class. You see, it doesn't really fit in there, right? And if I click over here, it's not going to show up. Like if I start typing something here, for instance, it cuts it off. So if I go in here and I go to format cells and I hit wrap text, it's gonna like change the size of the cells so that it fits in there. Okay, and you can change the size of the cells too. All you do is just go to the edge of this guy right here where you get that little symbol and you can push that up or down, and you can do this here left or right or anything. And maybe even more conveniently, if you say want all these the same size, you can highlight all of them and then just change one of them and it'll change the size for that cell for you. The other thing that you can do under format cells is you can come over here to border, and you can pick one of these styles here. I like a nice thick border, and you can do something like that, and it will put a border around it. Okay, and you can even take a block of them and go format cells, and now you can choose this guy over here, and you'll get a line around all of your cells. And this is really convenient because otherwise when you go to print, you're not really going to see any separation between the cells and what you're really meaning. Helps you to line things up and stuff a lot easier too. So I, for one, tend to enjoy that. The other thing I see some people do when you start to get a whole bunch of them going is to just go in here and highlight every other one. And then you can come up here to this little fill effect guy here, fill color. And you can just gray those out. And now when you're tracing across it, it makes it a little easier to not get confused about what you're doing. Okay. So I'm going to open up a new fresh sheet now. And I'm going to zoom in for you guys so you can see. And I'm going to go off camera here for a second, and I'm going to grab some of the data that we're going to need for this experiment from a sheet that I already have. And I'm just, control-C, control-V my way through that to paste into those cells. And I'm going to separate these out a little bit so that we can all see what's going on. And here we are. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to want to do with this is I'm going to want to make another column over here that is the mass without the beaker. So I want to subtract out the beaker's mass from this so I can see how much water alone I delivered with my burette. Okay, so I'm going to give this a title. Guess I got my caps lock on. And I'm going to say that this cell is going to equal the mass of the water and the beaker minus the mass of the beaker up here. And then I'm going to hit enters. Okay. So I could go down and I could do the same thing here, and I could do the same thing here. Okay, I could go here and say this equals the mass of the water plus the beaker minus the mass of the beaker. And I could go ahead and do that. But Excel actually makes this a little bit easier for us. What we can do is grab this and drag it down. But the way that we wrote this isn't going to work. And I'm going to show you why it didn't work, okay? Because if I go here, you can see that it grabbed this one, the next one, like I wanted it to. But it also moved down up here instead of keeping it at the mass of the beaker. I want this one to stay the same. I want to always subtract this cell. But I want it to move down this column also, okay? So there's a way that you do it. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it just is the way. If I want to lock in the letter of in one of these formulas, I put a $ in front of it. If I want to lock in the number I put a $sign in front of it. So if I have $signs in front of both of them, it's always going to use this same cell. See? So now you can see I have all the masses of all of my waters. Okay? The next thing we need to do is calculate an average. An average is going to have the same unit as what we're working with of all of these numbers. Okay? So there's a formula for that, and it's a pretty easy one. It's equals average, then you open up a parenthesis, and then you can input your numbers. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that we could do this. We could click here, and then hit comma, click here, comma, click here, and it will give me my average. Okay, the other way that we could do this is because it's like consecutive like this, like 7, 8, 9, is you actually don't have to put the middle one or any of the middle ones. You can actually just put a colon in there and it will take that value as well. Also, we didn't have to do any of that if we didn't want to. We could just click here, highlight all of those. You can see that it put in exactly the colon thing, and then we can hit enter. The other thing you'll notice is that Excel does not respect significant digits at all. Okay, but we can fix that. So if we can just highlight all this, go to Format Cells, we can go to Number, we can click right here where it says Number, and then we can, it says how many decimal places do we want? We have a 3-place balance, so we want 3. We hit OK, we can see we're back to all of our 3 places here. All right. The next thing we want is the standard deviation. So I'm going to type that in here. Again, the standard deviation is going to have the same units as what we're working with here. And the formula for this is going to be equals STDEV. Open up that parenthesis, and then just go ahead and choose all these. So there's a couple of STDEVs that Excel has too. There's STDEV.S, .C. They're slightly different from each other. It doesn't really matter. The standard STDEV function is just fine for us. So we'll open that up, and we'll hit enter, and we get our standard deviation. Now, what I see a lot of students doing, and I'm going to warn you against this, is they start doing this, and what they do, because they have this in a line, is they come all the way down and they include the average when they're calculating their standard deviation. You should not do that. It should just still be the 3 numbers from your trials, okay? So if you're getting something that looks wrong, that's probably why. All right, so now what we need to do is to convert all these over to volumes, right? So I have the standard deviation, or the density of water here in grams per milliliter. These are in grams, okay? So if I want my average in milliliters, I can convert this just like I would any other number. I will just take this average and I will divide it by this density number right here. Okay. This is also why it's really important to put your units in when you're making your notes and stuff, because now we're dealing with 2 different kinds of averages with 2 different kind of units, and we can get ourselves confused really quick. Okay. So we'll just click right there, and then we'll divide it by that density right there. And we get that value. And then we want the standard deviation in milliliters. And again, we're just going to say equals this standard deviation guy right here divided by this density. And there we go. And you see it didn't change much, but that's because we're dealing with water and the density is like really close to 1 here. So we didn't really expect for it to change very much. Now we can go through and format all these to have 3 digits like they should. So the last thing that I want to show you here is going to be how to get our percent error. So we'll make a spot for that. It's going to be a percentage. And our formula for this is going to be that this is going to equal, and we're going to have a little bit of an issue here. And the issue is going to be with our order of operations if we don't use parentheses. Okay, because we wanted to do this subtraction before it does the division. And so what it's going to be is it's going to be the value that we wanted to deliver, right, which was 10. You could put in 1000, 1000, whatever, but it doesn't really matter. It just needs to be 10. You'll get the right number. Minus our average value. This is our nominal value right here. Divided by our theoretical value of 10. Okay. And because this is a percentage, we have to then multiply this by 100. And you notice that we get a negative number for this, right? And that's because our average value was larger than the theoretical value, the way that we've defined it. But you notice that in the lab manual, it's got those vertical bars on either side of the numerator. And the reason is because this is meant to be an absolute value. Okay, and what that means is that no matter what this is, if it's negative, we're going to take the positive. If it's positive, we're going to keep it positive. Okay, we can do that in Excel. It's pretty easy actually. We just have to put a little function here and just put ABS. Okay, so now I don't have to do anything else. Before, these parentheses were grouping these together to make sure the order of operations was correct, but now it defines it as a function. So it's going to evaluate this function first, then it's going to divide it by 10, then it's going to multiply it by 100. And if I hit enter, you can see that I now have a good number here, and I'm going to go ahead and format this, and I'm going to give it 2 decimal places, because these only have 2 significant figures, so this should be 2 decimal places. And you can see that our percent error was pretty low for this guy. And I think that's it. So you'll just go through and do this for all of the different pieces of glassware, and you'll fill out the table based on the data that you got, and you should be good to go. If you guys have any questions or anything about any of this, feel free to contact me, and I can help you through it a little bit. Okay.